Hello, welcome back to the next Gren Twigs video. Today I'm going to talk about a framework I made for Gren called Pretty Nice. So Gren can, as we've seen in other Gren Twigs videos, you can make applications that target the browser that run fully in the browser. You can also make applications that run fully in Node, and Pretty Nice is a way to tie those together so that you can have a server running in Node, but that server can serve pages which include little components that are actually browser applications running fully in the browser. To show you what I mean, well, first you can go to prettynice.dev. That'll take you to the latest version of the docs, which is v3. Better docs are actually on the GitHub README. I just haven't fully fleshed out the pretty little doc site yet. So the README covers a lot of the things you can do. I'm just going to cover the very, very bare bones intro basics in this video. So to start with Pretty Nice, you're going to want to start with an empty directory. And as long as you have Node.js installed, you probably have this npx command installed. So you don't have to install anything. Just run npx pretty nice init. If you've never done that before, it will ask if you want to install Pretty Nice. Go ahead and say yes to that. And then it will ask if it can turn the current directory into a Pretty Nice project. And it gives you some handy things here you can do. You can run the server. You can check out the server side Gren application. And there's also a link to all the examples. Let's go ahead and run that server. And this server will watch for changes, so that if you change any of the files here, I'm going to open the server side, the main server file. We'll get to that code in a second. If I change any of this, it'll rebuild and restart the server for me. But let's see the site running now. So it runs by default on localhost, not 300, 3000. And welcome to my website. Made this counter. There we go. Some text and a little counter. That is coming from this server-side program, and it's very similar to a Node program. If you see, I think that my Gren Twigs video is called like Hello Node or something like that. You'll see a very similar style of program where you call define program. It's a little different. We have a router function here, which we'll get to. You can have a server-side model, but for this example, I don't need anything in the model. And then you call start program, and that's where you can tell it what host you want, what port you want to run on. You can initialize your server-side model. The important thing here is our router function, which you can see will get an instance of your server-side model, as well as a value representing the request and a value representing the response. That response is the thing you're going to customize and then return. Your returned response, though, is going to be wrapped in a task, and that is because you may want to pull, interact with a database, an HTTP API, file system, whatever. And as we've seen in previous Gren Twigs, that requires interacting with the Gren runtime. So you can have a task that, maybe it pulls some values from the database and chain onto that task another task that says, if I got the data I expect, return with this type of response. If I didn't, return with this type of response. Which is why the error case for that task, if you can see on the right there, is never. So we should always return a response. Literally impossible to compile the code if you're not doing that. So in the case of an error, you're going to want to return a response that might be like a 500, for example. We're matching on request.path, and that's going to be an array of each section. So like you can see the root here is an empty array, but we have another one here that says hello, and then we're capturing something in a name. So if we had a path that was like hello Justin, it's hello Justin, hello whatever. And here you can see it's just responding with text. But the home page that we looked at first, let's go back to that, is, I just realized I should probably zoom in a bit. There we go. It's calling this view home function. That home function it's setting the title tag. It's dropping some stuff into the page's head. And here we're just linking to a style sheet. And then it has some HTML. I'm going to delete these comments for clarity for right now. So we have a header, a little paragraph, and then this component thing, which I'll get to in a second. But let's look at what is happening here. If we view the source, we have server-side HTML being rendered for that header, for that paragraph, and then we have some JavaScript for that component. That component is the interesting part because you can see we're initializing it with some data. Oops, got a phone call, I'm ignoring that. That data we're just hard coding, but that data could come from anywhere because remember we're returning a task from our router. So I could pull this from the file system, a database, HTTP API, whatever. And that component is coming from this client directory. So this is the directory layout for a pretty nice site. You have a server directory with everything that runs server side, a client directory with everything that runs in the browser, and a public directory, which is accessible from both. It's just for your static assets. So under client, we have this components directory. Everything that you put here under components, even if it's nested, will be available as gen.components. Whatever you called it. So we have one called counter. And this is, if you've seen the video on a browser application with Gren, I think the first several videos are basically working their way up to being able to make a little browser side counter application like you see here. But it's slightly different. It's called a component, but it's still the Elm architecture. You still have a model. The difference is the way you initialize it. So we have something called props, and that is the first argument to our init function. And that is actually what we're passing in here. We're passing in those props, start equals 0. So this is where we define it. The nice thing about this is you are doing all your type checking and data fetching and passing into your component server side, which means it can all be type checked server side. You don't have to, serve up a JavaScript page, then that JavaScript goes and fetches data, and then it has a bunch of runtime error handling and error checks that it has to do. That all happens on the server. If I change something in my props and I don't pass it in, I'm still just calling start 0 here. I don't know why it's showing that I edited this file. I don't know what I changed. Oh, I removed those comments. So I added this field. I'm not passing it in server side, and it tries to compile and it doesn't like it. Oop, I also wrote bad. Gren. There we go. That's an error we expect a little bit more. Hey, init is not passing in what it needs to do its thing. Once we're compiling again. No bad code shipped to the client. We don't have to have anything client side that says, hey, if I didn't get delete me, do this. It just won't compile if you don't get it. Another nice thing about this is you can have multiple components on a page. So I'm just going to use the same component here as the example, but you could have something in your left sidebar that's a browser side and whatever, different components. But for this example, we'll just use the same one. I made another counter just for you, and let's start that at 100. Assuming that compiles, let's go back to the website. And now we have two components on the same page. They have their own set of data. That's where I'm going to stop. Pretty Nice can do a lot more. If you go to the README on github.com/blake/prettynice, covers everything you can do. Form handling, server-side tasks, using databases, stuff like that. A really good place to go is the examples directory, and that has quite a few things, including WebSocket examples using stuff like Tailwind. Check it out, and I would love to know what you think of Pretty Nice.